I'm Dr. Vineeta Srivastava, Associate Professor in Social Work. Today we are going to talk about human rights. It is a topic which is very important from the examination point of view. Various questions have been asked in various competitive exams and written tests as well as interviews about human rights. This session is an attempt to make you understand about the concept of human rights, various instruments available at international and national level to protect and preserve human rights with particular reference to India. The first basic question is, what are human rights? So human rights are the rights we have simply because we exist as human beings. These are universal rights which are inherent to us all regardless of nationality, sex, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, language, or any other status. The human rights range from most fundamental, for example, the right to life, to those that make life worth living, such as right to food, education, work, health, and liberty. Where do they come from? Means from where the human rights come from? This is the next question. So human rights come from the fact that we are not only physical beings, but also moral and spiritual human beings. Human rights are needed to protect and preserve every individual's human dignity, to ensure that every individual can live a life of dignity and a life that is worthy of a human being. Who has the human rights? This is also a very frequently asked question. So human rights are possessed absolutely by everyone. Children, men, women. If we analyze from the criminal justice administration that criminals under trials, everybody has human rights. From geographical territory or citizenship also, we can find that human rights are possessed by Africans, Americans, Europeans, refugees, stateless persons. Whether somebody is having employment or not, everybody possesses human rights. Bankers, dancers, astronauts, absolutely everyone. Many times questions are asked whether criminals also possess human rights. So answer is absolutely everyone. Criminals are humans too. The power of human rights lies in the fact that they treat everyone as equal in terms of possessing human dignity. Who is responsible for looking after human rights is the next obvious question. The answer is of we all need to. We all need to. There is legislation at the national level to protect the human rights of the citizens, and there is the legislation at the international level also which imposes restrictions on what governments are able to do to their citizens. But if no one points out that their actions are violating international norms, governments can continue to violate them with impunity. As individuals, we need not only to respect the rights of others in our everyday lives, but also to keep watch on our governments and on others. The protective systems are there for all of us if we use them. Does anyone have a duty to protect my rights? This is the next question. Yes. A right is meaningless without a corresponding responsibility or duty on someone else's part. Every individual has a moral duty not to violate your personal dignity, but your government, in signing up to international agreements, has not just a moral duty but also a legal duty. What is the definition of human rights is the frequently asked question in various competitive exams. The answer is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948 defines human rights as the rights derived from the inherent dignity of human persons. United Nations defined human rights in a private policy document in 1978 as freedom from arbitrary arrest and imprisonment, an invasion of privacy, right to food, shelter, health, care, and education, and freedom of thought, speech, assembly, religion, press, movement, and participation in government. You all are aware that the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993 has come in India. So this act defines human rights as the rights relating to liberty, equality, and dignity of the individual, guaranteed by the Indian Constitution as embodied in the fundamental rights and the international covenants. Is violation of human rights only a problem in non-democratic countries? This is also an obvious question. Actually, there is no country in the world that has a completely clean record on human rights, even today. There may be more frequent violations in some countries than others, or they may affect a large proportion of the population. But every single violation is a problem that ought not to have happened, and that needs to be dealt with. An individual whose rights are violated in one of the established democracies is hardly likely to be confused by the fact that, in general, their country has a better record of human rights than other countries in the world. The purpose of human rights need to be known to all of you. The purpose of human rights is to defend by institutionalized means the rights of human beings against abuse of power committed by the organs of the society or the state, and at the same time to promote the multidimensional development of the human personality. The notion of human rights is not static but dynamic. It is evolving in nature. We just analyze what the requirement is, which kind of situations are there in our society, and accordingly we need to frame some other laws or some other rules for the protection of human rights. What are the characteristics of human rights? This question has also been asked frequently. Actually, human rights are inherent. They belong to people simply because they are human. Human rights are inherent to each individual. They are the fundamental rights because without them, the life and dignity of human will be meaningless. They are inalienable. They cannot be rightfully taken away from a free individual. They cannot be given away or be forfeited. They are imprescriptible. Human rights do not prescribe and cannot be lost even if one fails to use or assert them even by a long passage of time. They are indivisible. Human rights are not capable of being divided. They cannot be denied even when other rights have already been enjoyed. Human rights are the universal rights, irrespective of one's status or condition or place where one lives. Human rights are enforceable without national border. Human rights are the same for all human beings, regardless of race, sex, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin. We all are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Human rights are universal. Human rights are interdependent. because the fulfillment or exercise of one cannot be had without the realization of the other. How are the human rights classified in different generations? This is also a frequently asked question. Actually, human rights have been classified in three generations: the first generation, second generation, and third generation. The rights which were generated by the English, American, and French revolutions, such as the right to life and liberty, right to freedom of speech and worship, and so on, are included in the first generation human rights. The second generation of economic, social, and cultural rights includes the right to work and right to education. Finally, the third generation of solidarity rights associated with the political and economic aspirations of developing and newly decolonized countries after World War II, which includes the collective rights to political self-determination and economic development. What are the legal documents for the protection of human rights? Would like to know about that? So actually we have these important instruments for the protection of human rights: Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948, the International Covenant on Economic and Social Rights 1966, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights 1966. Then there are some optional protocols also. There are many treaties also. Since the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, many treaties and agreements for the protection of human rights have been concluded through the auspices of the United Nations, and several regional systems of human rights law have been established. Convention on the Protection and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide 1951, Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination ICERD 21st December 1965, Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, popularly known as CEDAW 18 December 1979, Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, Degrading Treatment or Punishment CAT 10 December 1984, Convention on the Rights of the Child CRC 20 November 1989. International Convention on the Protection of the Rights of All Migrant Workers and Members of Their Families ICMW 18 December 1990. International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance CPED 20 December 2006. Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities CRPD 13 December 2006 are some of the important treaties concerning human rights. There are some regional human rights systems also, including European Human Rights System, Inter-American Human Rights System, Organization of African Unity's Charter of Human Rights and People's Rights, Islamic Human Rights Treaty, Organization of Islamic Conference, and Regional Treaty for Southeast Asia have also need a mention here. Name the NGOs fighting for human rights is the next question. International Committee on Red Cross, the Directory of Human Rights Internet, International Commission of Jurists, Amnesty International, Anti-Slavery Society, Article 19, the World Council of Churches. These are some important NGOs working at international level dealing with human rights. What are the legal documents and structures in India for the protection of human rights? Is the next question. In India, there is an act known as the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. We have the institutions at the national level known as the National Commission of Human Rights. We have the institutions at the state level known as the State Commissions on Human Rights. Whether the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993 was amended or not. That's the next question. The Act Protection of Human Rights Act 1993 was first amended in 2006 and then it was amended in 2019. What do you understand by the National Human Rights Commission? This question is also frequently asked in various competitive exams. So NHRC is a statutory body constituted under the Protection of Human Rights Ordinance of 28 September 1993. It is responsible for the protection and promotion of human rights defined by the Act as rights relating to life, liberty, equality, and dignity guaranteed by the Constitution or embodied in the international covenants and enforceable by courts in India. When did the NHRC constituted in India? Is the next popular question. The NHRC of India is a statutory public body constituted on 12th October 1993 under the Protection of Human Rights Ordinance of 28 September 1993. It was given a statutory basis by the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. The website is nhrc.nic.in. The jurisdiction is whole of Government of India. Headquarters is at New Delhi. First executive was Ranganath Mishra and preceding executive is K.G. Balakrishnan. What is the composition of NHRC? Is also very important to be known to all of you. The NHRC consists of the chairman and 4 members, excluding the ex officio members. A chairperson who has been a Chief Justice of India or a judge of the Supreme Court. 1 member who is or has been a judge of the Supreme Court of India, or 1 member who is or has been the Chief Justice of a High Court. 3 members, out of which 1 at least should be a woman, to be appointed from amongst persons having knowledge of or practical experience in matters relating to human rights. In addition, the chairpersons of various national commissions, including the National Commission for Scheduled Castes, National Commission for Scheduled Tribes, National Commission for Women, National Commission for Minorities, National Commission for Backward Classes, National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, and the Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities serve as ex officio members. The sitting judge of the Supreme Court or sitting Chief Justice of any High Court can be appointed only after the consultation with the Chief Justice of Supreme Court. Who appoints the chairperson and the members of NHRC has also been frequently asked. Actually, Section 2, Section 3 and Section 4 of the Protection of Human Rights Act lay down the rules for the appointment of the NHRC. The chairperson and the members of the NHRC are appointed by the President of India on the recommendation of a committee consisting of the Prime Minister, who is the chairperson of that committee, the Home Minister, the Leader of the Opposition in the Lok Sabha, means lower house, the Leader of the Opposition in the Rajya Sabha, means the upper house, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, and the Deputy Chairperson of the Rajya Sabha. What are the powers of the Human Rights Commission? Is also an important question. The Commission takes an independent stand while providing opinions for the protection of human rights within the parlance of the Constitution or in law for the time being enforced. It has the powers of a civil court and can grant interim relief also. It also has the authority to recommend payment of compensation or damages. What strategies may be adopted for the protection of human rights? This question may be asked or has been asked in various interviews of the competitive exams. So there need to be done a lot to protect the human rights. For example, we all need to be informed, aware, and sensitive. All of us need to be informed and aware of the legal provisions for the protection of human rights. We ourselves may become the violators of human rights if we are not sensitive enough. Focus on specific groups need to be there. The specific vulnerable groups are the children, the women, and the elderly, SCs, scheduled tribes, and other backward castes. They need to be specifically focused. Media advocacy, NGOs, and government institutions also need to be very active and enthusiastic for the protection of human rights. There's a principle known as the principle of non-encroachment to others' rights. We all should analyze our workings and we should ensure that we not in any way encroach the rights of the others. So self-check when you have the power is the very important strategy for the protection of human rights of others. Some active youth groups may become change agent for the protection of human rights. We need to make the youth of this country aware and knowledgeable and sensitive for the protection of human rights. Training about legal aid and other legal rights is also very important for the protection of human rights. So this is all about the human rights as far as this session is concerned. In the next session, we'll gain some more insights. Thank you.